Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Time to share the creepiest real crimes that you've heard of. Serial killers, cults, and the like. Police officers, forensic investigators, and paramedics especially welcome.
I have a Greentext story. Not so much as creepy, though. Be me living in a rough suburban neighborhood. Dirt poor at the time. My dad's a pretty bad alcoholic who spends most of his time hustling for beer. He hangs out with junkies and crackheads. One of them was my next-door neighbor at the time. I'll call him Jim. Big, bald guy, schizophrenic, always has bottles full of painkillers and antipsychotics. He also apparently had a tumor in his head the size of an egg, which is probably why he was crazy. Now this was a big guy, 6'4", 250 pounds maybe, but he was chill. He used to buy me beer, so I hung out with him and my dad. Fast forward a couple of years, and he's living in some tiny apartment not too far from mine. I'm walking home one day and see an ambulance outside his house and some guy laying on the ground bleeding nuts. Big-ass pool of blood. Dude gets locked up. My dad told me that Jim stabbed some guy in the neck with a single shear for no reason. 6 months later, Jim gets released. They had nothing on him, and he said he acted in self-defense. Jim told me that this crackhead he knows tried to bust down his door, so he sliced him. Still don't know whether that was the truth or if he just had some sort of break from reality and assaulted him. Jim spends the next 3 years or so in and out of jail for killing multiple people. All he claims were in self-defense. Haven't seen him since.
I used to be a petty criminal because my home life was shit. Shoplifting, selling stolen car parts, etc. Nothing big. These other guys with equally shit home lives I had known since I was a kid were my crew. We'd partake in some crimes and stuff. Thought it was so much fun, and we were badass. One night we plan on shoplifting from the convenience store. I'm the driver waiting in the parking lot. They sprint to the car all excited, which isn't normally how we do it. They rob the place and beat the hell out of the cashier. Shit just got too real for this guy. Stop hanging around with them and stop criminal activity altogether. They try to persuade me, then call me a wuss before finally giving up and we stop seeing each other. Move on with my life and get my shit together. A year later read that they both tried to kidnap a young couple in the park at night and kill them for kicks. They found the proper tools on them. The couple was armed, and they both got shot. They were also suspected in the kidnapping and murder of a 15-year-old girl dumped behind her home. One died, the other is now a cripple. Another incident. Guy I knew but didn't really know that well, also lived in my neighborhood. Became a drug dealer, acting like king shit and threatening everyone saying he was the baddest dude around. He must have pissed off the actual baddest dude around because he went missing after a deal gone bad. Found him bound and bludgeoned to death. Also was tortured with a blowtorch in some shack off a bike trail. Criminals are either cowards that will fuck you over any day of the week to save themselves or a closet basket case that has no problem fucking someone up.
On May 5, 1997, Monica Rizzo left her job at the San Antonio Department of Human Resources. She never told anyone where she was going and never said goodbye. Leonard Rizzo, Monica's husband, claims his wife came home that afternoon but disappeared a few days later. He never reported her disappearance to the police. I was very confused. It made no sense. My wife and I were very close. There was no reason for me to believe she wouldn't be coming back wherever she'd gone. I have faith in her. I just chose to wait. On June 5th, a few weeks after Monica's disappearance, San Antonio police received an anonymous phone call claiming Monica had been murdered by her husband and that her bones were buried in her backyard. The San Antonio police arrived at the Rizzo's house shortly after. Monica's oldest son answered the door. He told the police that he was just visiting and hadn't seen his mother in a week. Inside the house, police found nothing out of the ordinary. Monica's clothes were still hanging in the closet and her car was parked in the driveway. Nothing seemed to be missing except Monica Rizzo. While searching the backyard, the detectives did find bones, but they clearly belonged to some kind of animal. The anonymous caller appeared to be wrong. 5 weeks later, on July 5th, police received another anonymous tip. This time, the caller gave detectives an exact location in the backyard. According to the anonymous tipster, Monica's bones were buried under a pile of tires by the fence. Archaeologists excavated the site. Again, the police quickly responded. After searching the Rizzo's backyard, detectives collected a skull, a number of bone fragments, and even a bag filled with what appeared to be human flesh. Leonard Rizzo claimed he had no idea how the bones got there. These bone fragments that are in my yard are an absolute mystery to me. As big a mystery as my wife's disappearance. To me, someone is trying to draw attention from themselves. Someone is doing this to me. Detectives also learned that Monica's co-workers were concerned for her safety. On one occasion, they had even asked police to check on her at home, but Leonard claimed he had never hurt his wife. There was no domestic abuse. There was no domestic violence. My wife and I were deeply in love. We are deeply in love. Initial DNA tests on the bones proved they were human. But whose were they? Dr. Robert Hard was part of a team of archaeologists from the University of Texas brought in to excavate the site. We literally crawled across this area, using our trowels and moving the roots and moving the grass blades and looking down beneath the grass. And every time we found a bone fragment or something the police department considered might be evidence, we'd put an orange pin flag out. Before they were done, the yard was dotted with dozens of orange flags. When you find bone in an old archaeological site, the bone is very dry. This bone still had a greasy feel to it, so we knew it had not been there very long, but at the same time, it had been there more than a week or a couple weeks. There was no soft tissue still attached to it. For 8 days, Dr. Hard and his team collected a total of 200 bone fragments. Most had been chopped into pieces less than 3 inches long. Dr. Hard formulated a theory. We felt it was some kind of machine. Some type of chipper/shredder has been discussed quite a bit. It's the only machine that we can come up with that could possibly account for this type of breakage. You wouldn't get it with a saw, you wouldn't get it with a knife, you wouldn't get it with a lawnmower. We can't think of anything else that would break up bone like this. Once again, police questioned Leonard Rizzo. I've never even operated a wood chipper. I've never rented anything in a rental store other than a car dolly, maybe a trailer. Leonard Rizzo continued to insist that he had nothing to do with his wife's disappearance or the bones in his backyard. Those bone fragments and such, where they came from, I don't know how they got there. I don't know, and I adamantly did not kill them or anyone else. DNA testing recently revealed that all the bone fragments were, in fact, those of Monica Rizzo. However, the San Antonio District Attorney still lacks enough evidence to file charges.
Just imagine this. A killer roams around working as a free hand at various odd locations armed with different garden tools, such as a wood chipper. He just lounges about in the communities for a while, is a likable fellow all the way through that works hard for weeks on end and gets known by the community. That is how he spots his victims, by getting directly around all the impulse and desire by sheer calculation and patience. He makes a mental map of social connections and repute circling around the victim and victim's family, co-workers, acquaintances, and whatnot. Just so it's easy to find a target having the direct match as mentioned case. He then proceeds with the killing, leaves the body in the woods to be picked clean, and boils off the rest of the meat. Keeps doing the last jobs he signed while having told people he has to move on. The last day finally arrives, and people help him pack his shit up. Apart from the wood chipper, it needs to run for a 2 hours time to get cleaned and greased for the road so it can manage to the next town. Any and all parts seen coming from it is excess wood that has lodged itself or parts of the inner coating that is white. As a final insult, all is collected, and he leaves at night, making a little snowfall in the yard of his victim's family. Fucking brilliant. The reason for calling might have been he knew it was time to retire and find some place to settle down for good, and therefore wanted police to get in the know of how he'd done it so they could maybe check on other disappearances.
Up here, we have had the Green River Killer, or Highway 99 Killer. Highway 99 is also known as Pack Highway or Pacific Highway. This guy has killed and hid prostitutes' bodies around Green River, Washington. I live in Federal Way, which isn't too far, but the guy has been arrested for a while and has finally started to release the locations of the final bodies. When I used to live in Sacramento, California, my mom and stepdad were looking for wedding rings and found a set on Craigslist. They never got to check them out. Apparently, there was a couple of people going around putting up ads on Craigslist in the Sacramento, Rancho Cordova, and Roseville areas of a wedding set, and would ask that people invite them over to show them the set. When they would show up, they would tie up the couple, kill them by either stabbing them or suffocating them, and then robbing the house. I flipped shit when I heard this. What if I came home and my mom and stepdad were tied up and I was then caught? What if I came home and they were already dead? Shit messed with me more than it did my mom and stepdad. I never found out if they caught them.
I met up with a friend to go out and have fun. My friend made a deal with this hot new drug dealer close to a club we would be going into. After they did the double handshake to exchange the drugs and the money, we turned around and went to the club. I quickly looked back to see where he was going. Instead of going away, he followed us, and he was staring right at me with a big weird grin. I turned back and didn't think much of it. Instead, I snorted some cocaine from off my hand and gave some to my friend. I stashed the cocaine next to my MDMA in my shoe, and we went into the club. After dancing a little and meeting some girls, I suddenly felt how strong this cocaine actually was. It pretty much was the purest shit I had ever snorted in my life, like it wasn't even cut at all. I decided to go to the toilet and do some MDMA too. When I got out, I saw my friend had met some girls too, and I grouped my girls up with mine to higher our chances of getting laid. When we both had found our potential girl, we decided to go to his place. As we walked out of the club, we noticed our dealer in the distance looking right at us. I looked at my friend to see what he thought about it, but he just shrugged and pushed me forwards. As we walked on, my friend's girl started kissing my friend's neck and they both stopped to kiss. My girl was a little shy and just wanted to talk about her boring-ass life, so I faked interest and let her go on for a while. Eventually, I suddenly heard a weird breathing from out of an alley from my left. As I looked at it, I noticed it was our dealer, standing there exposing himself. He wasn't looking at my friend kissing the chick either. He was staring right at me. I patted my friend, but he had already seen it and he told the girls to stay back. We decided to move back to the nightclub and call the cops there, as we both didn't have our phones on us as it was my birthday, and I didn't want to be bothered with phone calls all night. We ran back to the nightclub and called the cops as we waited inside. The creepy thing was that after about 10 minutes, we noticed that he was in the nightclub with us exposing himself in the corner, his eyes looking right at me again. We called for the bouncer who knocked the guy out and tied him up so he couldn't run off. Eventually, the cops arrived and arrested the guy. I did get some that night though, but I never got cocaine as good as that night ever again. I'm also very cautious with my dealers these days.
Not really creepy, but still unsettling. I used to sit next to this boy in elementary school. We weren't really friends, but talked at school, you know. His older brother was friends with my brother, and they sometimes hung out. Fast forward several years later. I'm in high school and I haven't seen the guy in years. One day we were all told to assemble in the gym. Rumor had it one of the girls from another class had died. Turns out the guy I used to sit next to in elementary school was her boyfriend, and he sort of lived with her and her mom. Apparently the night before, some shady guys came over to their house to buy a PS2, and they ended up robbing them. They shot everyone in the head point blank over a fucking PlayStation. My brother was still friends with the older brother, so he went to the funeral. It was an open casket, and one side of the kid's head was completely blown off.
After I left the army, I lived in a shitty flat. Really dingy place, second top floor of a giant block. Anyway, there was a woman who lived directly above me, and she'd bang her head around all day, stomp on the floor, smash into the walls, bang her head on the window above mine. Generally really messed up. I don't think she left the house. Someone came and dropped food off for her late at night. Who knows why? So I'm sat there with my mate watching football on the television. He knows about the banging noise, but we don't give a shit because we're celebrating my moving out into a proper house in a nice bit of town. As he goes to get another beer from the kitchen, I decide I want to smoke. Remembering that I'm moving out in a week or so, I decide it best to stand at the window and smoke out of there. As I get up, the banging stops after a solid 4 hours of noise. Result: I head toward the window, open it, and light up a tab. He's messing around in the kitchen, going through my drawers, trying to find a bottle opener. I turned around to give him some directions, turned back, and as I exhaled, she flew past me. I just remember her haggard face. It's stuck in my mind for years. I can still picture it now. She must have been about 3 inches away from me as she fell, several hundred feet to the ground. She hit a bollard and went everywhere. I'd seen dead bodies and people die before, but that was unreal. For whatever reason, she looked in my window as she fell past. Still wake up thinking of that sometimes. Fucking horrible.
Not paranormal at all. A bit of background, my dad's side of the family is seriously fucked. Don't speak to my dad's father as he used to beat my dad's siblings and their mother. My dad's mother was in a mental hospital for 4 years as she thought car radios were telling her to do evil things. Anyway, if I remember the story that my dad told me correctly, it would be around 1997 to 1998. My dad's mom went to the local video rental shop, probably Blockbuster. From the UK, by the way. She rented Titanic. After taking it home and having something to eat, she sat down and put it in the VCR. The tape wasn't Titanic, but was in fact a snuff film. All I know after that is she informed police. They took the tape, and that's the last she heard of it. I don't know if I believe it or not, as she's not the most reliable source of a story, but my dad swears everything his mom said is true, and it messed her up again, psychologically, after pulling herself together.
This happened in my town about a year or so ago, late at night. Mother and her daughter are leaving dance class. Dance class was at a local mall. The parking lot was nearly empty this late at night. On their way to their car, this guy, we'll call him D, assails them and forces them into their van. D drove to a back road behind the mall, essentially out in Hicksville, woods and cornfields all around. D pulled off into a clearing and starts to Christian. The mother attempts to fight him off. He stabs her multiple times. While this is going on, the girl takes off into the night and runs into the woods. Some guy driving down the road sees the 10-year-old girl wandering down the side of the road, takes her to the nearest house where they call the police. When the cops show up, D is striding around the clearing, basically shitting his pants. Troopers bring him into jail, and when he next appears in court, his face is all fucked up, smashed to shit. Cops beat the ever-loving shit out of him. His official story is he was jumped by inmates. It gets better. Turns out D was in home confinement awaiting trial for illegal material charges. Had an ankle bracelet, took it off and set it so it looked like it was still on. Whoever was monitoring the bracelet ignored 45 or so alerts that the device was being tampered with.
I grew up in Baltimore just as my mother did, so I've seen my share of atrocities, but I'd like to share a story she told me because of all the awful stories my mother told me. She told me a lot. This one in particular has really stuck with me. My mother had a close friend, let's call him R, and R was dating a prostitute, let's call her M. R lived in a really shady apartment building in Baltimore, and the best way I can describe it is from the back balcony. You can see the balconies of other apartments. Anyways, M went out one night and never came home. R panicked, called the police, and confided in my mom about it. About 2-3 weeks later, R, still panic-stricken, is sitting on his balcony and is overwhelmed by an awful smell. He asks around and other people smell it. Police begin to investigate it. Come to find out the mutilated, rotting corpse of M was on a balcony directly across from R in a trash bag. He would walk out every morning and look across at the balconies, having no idea his missing girlfriend was right across from him. Pretty sure he ended up offing himself, but yeah, pretty awful.
Christ, poor girl and poor guy. Prostitutes are only a little luckier than homeless people when it comes to victimization. Not many people care about them. Hell, I bet a lot of killers think that by killing them, they're doing society a service. Did the investigation ever turn anything up? Have you got any more stories to tell, if I'm not being too prying?
When my mom was a teenager, she used to go to the carnival with her friend when it came around. I think her name was Patty or something. And the carnies would flirt with her and Patty whenever they'd come around. They'd let them on the rides for free, etc. And one day, my mom was grounded so she couldn't go with Patty. She said she really considered sneaking out, but really felt tired so she just stayed home. That night, Patty got beaten by the carnies. I mean, she was like really badly battered and bruised. And while they were beating her, one of them apparently said to her, "It's a real shame your pretty little friend wasn't here too." And Patty never told anyone other than my mother. After that, she kind of spiraled out of control and got real heavy into drugs and OD'd a while after. She was really messed up in the head after that.
I don't understand what drives people to do these kinds of things. I mean, I'm like most people, I get angry. But I've never been compelled to hurt someone for my own pleasure. Call me naive if you want, but I don't get it. I probably never will.
One time she told me about how she was walking home with her boyfriend the same way she walked every day. She was about 20, and they were both stopped and dragged into an alley by 3 guys in masks. One guy held my mom and put a gun to her head. Her boyfriend went to punch him, so the other 2 started beating the shit out of her boyfriend. And they demanded she give them whatever she had. So she handed him her entire purse and just told him to take everything. The 2 guys beat her boyfriend unconscious in front of her, then pushed her away and told her to not look back and to walk home or else she'd be dead. So she walked home. They apparently just took everything he had on him and left. After they left, someone saw him and called an ambulance. He was fine. They never found the 3 guys. My mom said she's never been more scared in her life. It's just weird to think that even in a route you take every single day without any problems, someday something awful can happen.
My boss is an ex-cop, SWAT, narcotics undercover, etc. He's got lots of stories. This one isn't too scary, but it's the only one I could think of. Some guy calls in saying he hasn't heard from his father in months, which is weird. He lives out of state, so he can't check on it. Cop looks into it, but doesn't really think anything of it. Go to the house, talk to his wife, kid's stepmom. Wife tells the cops he's out of town. He rides motorcycles. She just saw him, etc. Nothing looks out of place or suspicious. Check still being cashed by missing guy. Credit cards used. Cop comes by again. Wife says he just left. Cop didn't see anyone on the road though. Instincts tell him something is up. Lime for gardening everywhere. The wife apparently killed him by decapitating him with a shovel. Apparently, when the cop came for the first time, the dead guy was sitting above him in the motorized garage door carriage. Wife then put his body in her well, her drinking water, for months. Put the head somewhere else. Third husband she'd done this to. She was some old broad.
20 years ago, my father worked as an EMS or EMT. I don't know which one or what the difference is. He rode in an ambulance to help people. They were called to a home by police, but on arrival, told to wait outside. The coroner showed up, and 8 bodies were taken out of the home and loaded into the van. My father said that even at the roadside, you could smell the rotting corpses as soon as the front door was open. For the longest, rumors spread amongst the town that a serial killer had stored bodies in his home and that the police weren't releasing info because they didn't want to scare our small town. People were freaking out about it for a year. I remember the stories we used to tell each other on the school bus when I was a little kid, and eventually you couldn't tell what was true and what was fiction. The truth finally came out. The dude that lived there killed his wife, his kids, her parents, and a family friend of theirs. They were going through a divorce, he was distraught, and no one went looking for them for a couple of weeks. I have no idea why. That house is supposedly totally haunted.
Not very creepy, but this one always stuck to me. My mother used to tell me of one of her neighbors, when she was young and lived out in the boonies, who was a career killer, or hitman, whatever you call it. Let's call him F. He was a real psycho. He would walk around the town streets whipping people with a horsewhip at random, and once, in a fit of anger, he beat his horse so badly it died later because of the wounds, and besides, he killed people for a living. One day, F had an argument with some other dude over some trivial matter. F lost his temper and took out his gun and literally Chris Chan the dude at gunpoint. Fast forward 5 years, and F was shot dead right in the middle of a crowded bar at noon. It was the guy he Chris-channed. He came out of nowhere and stuffed him with bullets. The police turned a blind eye about it.
The officer Anon out on patrol. Gets called to a farmhouse that is not too terribly far from town. No, I was all on my own BS, as backup was only 10 minutes away if he needed it. Less if they hauled ass, and they would. He felt no fear going in. He thought it was just an alarm going off while the owners were gone out of town. Assumed a break-in at the very worst. No big deal to him, so he says. Gets to the house. He smells rotting meat. Well, shit. Calls for his buddy to get there, just in case. Nothing in the house, just awful smells. Notices that in the backyard it is worse. There is a barn out at the edge of the property. Tells his buddy on radio he was going to be checking the barn out and for him to pull around back. Gets in the barn, dead horses. A few of them mutilated so badly he didn't know that they were horses. Family owned 6 of them, 5 bodies in the barn. One horse was tied up, still alive, to a pole in the middle of the barn. Looked like someone had started cutting on its sides. They found some bloody tools on the floor, but that was it. Officer Anon may have actually scared the guy off who was doing it. Random livestock killing and disappearances happened on and off for years after. Just recently, he says, they have not had any reports. He was a deputy in a small town, and they had a bad Satanist problem back in the 90s. Basically, edgy teenagers were killing livestock, but the horse thing was the worst. They never saw more than 1 animal killed at a time, let alone 5. And that's all he'll tell me. They are actually still afraid there are people still doing it.
I grew up in a family of cops, and probably will be one when I'm older. The shit I heard at the dinner table, though. Dad's out on patrol, early 90s. Call comes in for a disturbance on a property. The property is pretty far out. Not in a woods, but they had some woods. Gets up to the house, nothing looks off. Probably an animal or even a homeless drunk spooked the family. He approaches the front porch, knocks and gets no answer. Odd, the house across the street called it in. He looks through the windows, sees a pair of legs on the ground in the doorway. If you don't know this, the only way a cop can enter a home is if they're invited or there is a potential danger. Calls in backup and an ambulance, takes out his revolver, this was before they switched to autos, and creeps in. Goes to the guy on the ground, alive but really fucked up. Hears a grunting and muffled screams from upstairs. He creeps up. Going up the stairs, the sounds stop, and then a man runs out to the top of the landing. They lock eyes for a second. He has a shitty little .25, shoots once at Dad and then runs. Dad shoots, then chases him. The guy runs into a bathroom, then jumps through the goddamn window. It's not like the movies, guys. He made it halfway out, then cartwheeled and fell the rest of the way, landing on garbage cans. Dad checks the rooms. The wife was tied up, beaten. Same with the daughter in the other room. The guy must have kicked the door in and done all of this while the 911 call was made and the time it took Dad to drive up. This is my uncle's, always getting called for domestics into this one house. The wife would call in a panic. They'd arrive. She would change her story. I overreacted. It's nothing. We worked it out, crap. They'd try to tell her they can help, but she wouldn't have it. Soon, her younger daughter would call whenever they fight. One time, they separate the family, and my uncle's partner takes the little girl to the other room to talk. A few seconds later, he comes out and starts beating the ever-living shit out of the dad. Uncle pulls him off, asks what the shit is he doing. He says, go talk to the girl. The girl says the officer asked if she needed anything, and she asked him to make her dad stop hurting her at night. Uncle goes in, and they smack him around a bit more before arresting him, saying he fought them in the report. He made detective shortly after that.
I guess I'll bite. I work and live in the lower Westchester Bronx area of New York. This happened about 8 years ago, so I was around 14 at the time. I was just hanging out with a few friends at the time, smoking cigarettes. I was edgy. At my friend's apartment complex in the parking lot. We're just bullshitting when we hear a succession of 4 loud thwacks coming from around the corner of the building complex. At first I thought it was just a big truck that hit a pothole, but the commotion that followed proved me wrong. We casually walked around to that side of the building, and what I saw made me sick to my stomach. There were 3 kids, no older than 7 and no younger than 2, all lying on the ground, arms and legs bent, skulls fractured, blood pooling around them, and an older woman lying a few feet away. Apparently, some woman who couldn't stand her life anymore threw her kids off of the roof of the 8-story building before jumping herself. Fucked up shit, man. I was messed up for a while after that, and whenever I hear similar noises, I still cringe.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.